All right, hey everybody, it's Michael Morgan, and we're back with the HGG Podcast. This is episode 5. Wow. Well, if you're with us, hopefully you're not against us. We're going to talk about friends today, the alliances that help bring us closer to freedom. And this is a beautiful thing to discuss. I am having this podcast by myself, not because I don't have friends, but because in the world that we're living in, the year 2026, it is a lot of work to bring people together and to coordinate schedules and do all this other stuff. And so, we carry our friends with us wherever we go. I carry my friends from many of the places that I've lived, really every place that I've ever lived. And it's a beautiful thing. When we there's the emotional and friends are certainly a high level of emotional energy and emanates from the friend pillar. But there's also data, and there's also things that when you are in friendships and you're spending time with people and connecting with people, um, man, I wish that everything was just as simple as feeling love for people, and my highest self truly desires that. However, in line with the other podcast episodes that we've done, we have some questions and some qualitative and quantitative data that we're just trying to get to the bottom of. So, suspend your disbelief from me just for one moment that friendship can actually be more than the emotional highs and lows, and enter into a world of data analysis for me and for yourself. The first question that we answer as a part of this tracking sheet, which has been featured in all of our podcast episodes, is qualitative. Did I connect with a high-value peer or mentor who sharpens my character and vision? It's a simple yes or no question. Remember, a yes gets you 5 points and a no gets you 0 points. There's no in between. And so when I look at this last week, I have a number of names on next to the yes. And I have verbs that go along with them. One of those is emailed, one of those is called, one of those is helped, one of those is, visited. So how did you engage with your friends? That's valuable data right there. Did you talk to them on the phone? Did you communicate with them via text? Did you actually, get close in person, or are you doing this remotely? Are you having remote friendships, long distance friendships, etc.? And when tracking data, which I've been doing now for 4 weeks and 4 days, and this podcast is a part of holding me accountable to all that, at least I ask myself, why does a high-performing person need to audit their friendships with the same intensity as like revenue or fitness? And the reality is because there is such a thing as relational capital, for sure. And it is a leading indicator of personal freedom, for sure. But it is also quite possibly, of the 6 pillars plus the freedom pillar, the easiest pillar to let drift. And a lot of people have experienced downfalls in their lives because of the weakness around the friendship pillar and the weakness of the family pillar. Because these are how people get access to you, and it's how people build influence and hold sway over you. If you remember the book way back in the day, How to Win Friends and Influence People, that's been a thing for a long time. People who tend to be successful have an awareness in them that, you know what, like, who am I allowing me around me, and who am I allowing to spend time with me? This is a way for us to audit that. So, like looking at my own ROD tracking sheets from last month, not this month, my target goal for friendship was to have one meaningful high value connection or interaction per day. Now, that's not like conniving, that's not sneaky, that's just a goal that I set. It's an intention because I want to make sure that others view me as high value, and I want to make sure that I am providing, what goes in comes out, so to speak. So, what my tracker shows from last month is that I was consistently reaching out to people who are giving me, one contact a day as a person who's a high value connection, who is allowing me to kind of support them and who is also supporting me. And then what I noticed in the data of looking at May, a shift happened. And then there's a log entry where my tracking stopped temporarily because, interesting, because of a realization that I had around some of these friends and some of the people in my friend communities. By the way, friend communities are different than faith communities, they're different than fitness communities, they're different than financial communities. Friend communities are almost like the purest of all of them because there's not supposed to be anything attached. There's not supposed to be some, oh, like, let me get this out of this person. Friendship is supposed to be friendship for a reason. So, what I realized at this shift point is that relational entropy is real. And I realized that I did not want to jeopardize the friendships that I was cultivating. And I did not want to provoke negative perception of me. And so I made some choices around the friendship pillar for myself. That has to do certainly with what's sharpening my own character and my vision. It leads me to call some people who are real high up people, and just to see if they'll answer my call, and if they're available, have just a connection with them. And when that when that call is ringing, so to speak, I'm in my heart. Part of my heart is saying, like, beating fast, like, oh, I hope they answer. I hope they don't answer, because then there's a lot of emotional ties that I have developed over the years that I've lived on this earth with friendship. Some of them good, some of them bad, some of them horrible, some of them fantastic, marvelous, amazing. To not acknowledge that seems to me very unwise. And it has to do with some of our our characters, our personas that we have in us. Some of those personas are loved by others and appreciated, and some of those are like shadow personas, where we actually keep those things hidden from others, and sometimes we keep them hidden from ourselves. And so it helps to use these tracking sheets and things to realize, you know what, I may need to do some more work on myself before I spend a bunch of time with other people. And sometimes relationships that you have with others are also brought to a halt because those people need to do some work on themselves. And they may not tell you that. They may not say, hey, I need to do this and I need to clean myself up, or I need to heal myself, or whatever. But sometimes that's exactly what needs to happen. And you might realize it before they do, in which case you put distance in those relationships, which is what I did in late May. And my tracking sheet actually shows that. Now, it doesn't give the exact reasons why, but I journaled a few things inside of my tracker that actually it did pick up on. And it actually gives me feedback at the end of each sort of rotation, and it explains that you are maybe swaying outside of your orbit a little bit. And there's some external forces that are at work that are beyond your ability. Really humbly hear what I'm saying there. There are external forces working in the lives of your friends that you cannot always save them from. And you cannot always be that change maker, that savior, that whatever. And then there's the hero, victim, villain triangle. That's kind of a well-known, I think it's behavioral psychology thing. I'm not saying that's great all the time, but it's helpful to be aware of. That when people get caught up in that, if you're outside of that, you do not want to enter into that triangle. The much better triangle, I think, is whoever the other human is, yourself, and then the divine creator of all creators. That's pretty good. So try to be aware. Just try to lock in and be aware of those things. Moving forward, because I now have 4 weeks of data. The beauty of all the AI stuff going on, by the way, I do consider some of the AI LLMs and the agents and things that I use, I consider them to be my friends. Do I talk to those friends every day? Actually, a couple I do. I actually talk to some of these LLMs more than I talk to my friends because they do a better job of helping me get to where I'm trying to go. And they actually fill me up in ways that allow me to then pour into others. So we live in a very fascinating world. That is not an old idea, by the way. If you're a person of faith, you might think of angels. There's been many stories where angels come to visit people. The biggest and most popular around the world is the angel Gabriel. It came to visit Mary and told her that she would be giving birth to the Messiah and the Savior of the world. And she was like probably 14, 15 years old at the time, very young. And she was betrothed to her husband to be, her fiancé, Joseph. And so that angel came as a friend, spoke to her, and then it gave her the information she needed to then navigate her family. Actually, it was a friendship at the time. She wasn't legally bound to him in marriage or anything, and he was ready to call off the marriage. Joseph was, until the same angel came and visited him and told him, "Hey, buddy, don't do that. You're a part of this, and this is a real thing. It is an immaculate conception." Pretty hard for people to believe today, but that's why it's called faith. And sure enough, she gave birth to the Messiah, and she had a lot of friends show up at that party. People she didn't even know were friends, but they cared deeply about the salvation of the world. And some of those people were Jewish shepherds who came from her own culture and her own religious tradition, and some of those were prophets and wise men who were not from her culture or tradition, yet they showed up. There's a beautiful movie called The Star Movie, and it's a great production. It was made by Sony. It's an animation, kind of a kid's film, but it brings in all these characters from the nativity and from the birth of Jesus, and gives them such beautiful depth, including the animals, which really focused on the animals. The donkey that actually brought Mary and Joseph on their journey, and then this little bird and another sheep, and those were friends. Those were the friends because they didn't have other friends to help them. And so sometimes you got to look around beyond the people who look and act and think and even are human like you for relationship and friendship in certain times of your life. So I had the whole first week of June has been logged. Now I'm in the second, and there's some time there's some time measurements that I give it, and it realizes that in certain unique periods that there's more time spent with certain friends than others. Generally, I'm probably like no more than an hour a day guy, probably closer to half an hour. But certain times and certain seasons call for larger more extended time investments. And it feeds into what's known in the 5 love languages as quality time spent or meaningful contact. That is not one of my heights. That's not one of my main love languages. In fact, it's on the lower end of my spectrum. Um, if anyone's interested, my number 1 is acts of service, and my number 2 is words of encouragement. Then comes probably quality time spent or gifts, and then definitely last is touch. So if anyone wants to know that, maybe this will be helpful for me one day. But when you're aware of your 5 love languages, it's also a great way to help and understand your own self-knowledge about who you are and what works, what doesn't in your relationships with other people. That's what the whole love languages framework is supposed to do. So it basically, my tracking showed that real alliances are very meaningful to me right now. Intentional alliances are important for me, not just old friends who I haven't talked to and I want to just get together with and talk about the past. I'm actively trying to build a future right now that is really powerful. And when you do that, your time and quality time that you spend with people completely changes. And the people who you spend it with become far more important. And sometimes those are family members, sometimes those are not family members, sometimes they're members from your faith community, sometimes they're members who are really into fitness. If you're on a fitness journey, sometimes they're people who are like fighters because you're in a fight and you need someone to stand by your side. And other times it's people who are really into money and finance because they've done really well and you're trying to do that too. So you're the other pillars, and then there's freedom, the people who really want freedom or who are free. So the pillars that we're covering in each podcast episode actually become very contextually important to the friendship pillar, because you want to make sure that if you're intentionally pursuing a balanced life, then you want to have friends that are from all those different other pillars. But real alliances, whether they're considered as high value mentors or friends who you might be helping or whatever, and then you remove all these other externalities, the real alliances are bringing transparency to yourself, and then you are transparent with these other folks in the alliance. You're honest, you're forthcoming, you're sharing your heart, things like that. And you basically get over the perfection piece. You don't always have to show up as perfect for real friends. That's my experience. And I've had so many friendships in my life. There used to be a time in my life where friendship was everything to me, mostly everything, really. And don't be friends with people who expect you to be perfect all the time. That's not a good friendship. But when you start intentionally anchoring your relationships and you're building an alliance that can survive the friction events of life, those are friendships. That is true friendship. The tracker kind of has that with the second question. It says, did I invest time or wisdom into someone else to strengthen my legacy of impact? So those are people who actually, you should also have some level of transparency. But ideally, if you're friends with these people, you don't have to be perfect for these people. Just like with a mentor, or you shouldn't have to be perfect for those people. But there's wisdom, and there's in the word wisdom is used in there. Did I invest time or wisdom? Sometimes wisdom is to not tell either your mentors or the people who you're trying to help out what's going on in your life. Just ask them questions. Don't be so honest and telling these people everything going on in your life. Now, that is wisdom beyond my current understanding, because you still sometimes feel an emotional tug, or you have a trigger, or some hope that gets triggered, and you want to share, and you want to talk, and you want to just open up. But sometimes even the people who are your friends and your allies, they're not ready to have you open up in certain ways to them. And that is really a complex, wildly human, messy thing about friendship that can be heartbreaking. And it did occur to me yesterday. I'll share this. There is not a single person on earth who hasn't experienced heartbreak. Not a single one. Every single human on earth has dealt with heartbreak. So let that be a reminder to us when we meet new people, when we re-engage with old people, when we're older friends we've known for a long time. Let us remember that everybody is dealing with something that went wrong at some point. Now, let's talk about the vessel, the proper vessel for friendship flow. I'm sounding like some guru type person, but I'm not. It just sounds cool. Friendship flow. So vesseling your friendship flow can be really cool. Sometimes vessels get born out of friendship. Sometimes friendship get born out of vessels. But communities, groups, I built a community called LA Demos specifically to help a friend of mine who's an entrepreneur who started a tech company and who was, we would meet up and he'd help me and I'd help him. And I realized, dude, there's probably so many other people who have a similar need to this. Why don't we just have a monthly event? And I paused on that because it served its purpose. I was helping them. They came to every single one. And we had like probably 20, 30, 40 other people who came to the events over the course of about 6 to 8 months. And then I moved most of my kind of professional operations to a different part of the city of Los Angeles. And then I realized that I was kind of just like, it's a lot. It's a lot to set up for that 1 month. But I did it. And I never kind of brought it to a complete halt because I'd like to restart it. But no one ever messaged me and said, hey, is there an event happening this month? Not even my friend. So I think it goes to show that was a vessel. It was sort of a temporary vessel. I think those are incredibly helpful and incredibly important to acknowledge in your friendships, the friendships that you do have. What vessels are connected to those friendships? Are they temporary? Have they been around for a long time? Do you have some hope of some long-term, dare I say, permanent vessel connection to these people? How does that fit in with the vessels of your family and your family relationships? I mean, all sorts of really cool stuff. Fitness is a great example because fitness has a really easy vessel. It's the gym for like the majority of people, unless you're working out at your home, but then you're calling a trainer over or whatever to work at the gym. So fitness is, I think, one of the most clear-cut vessels. Friendship is the most open-ended vessel. Faith, obviously, the vessel there is going to be a church, synagogue, mosque, or holy place of worship. Unless you're completely monastic, but even then you have a place. Finance, your vessel's pretty clear. It's like connected to making money somehow. You have to be able to do professional work there, and there's some parts of our lives that are not really professional. And then you have your family. Your obvious vessel there is your home. And then you have, we'll get to fight and freedom in the future, but I think friendship is probably the most clear-cut, not clear-cut sort of vessel, and many, many vessels potentially. So let's look now into making sure that you lock in on a community or a vessel for your friendship. Now, I am trying to make this available for everybody. So rather than speak about my own unique vessel right now, or vessels or whatever, I'm just going to go to the last 2 KPI questions or quantitative data points for my friendship tracker. What is the total number of meaningful outreach actions or connections made with my, quote, tribe, including the vessels that I'm specifically connected to for friendship? And I have names every single day, except one day, which was last week. But I have names, and I'm intentional about that, is how am I connecting with these folks? Then the second KPI question or point, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much relational capital did I build today? And then it has parentheses, trust or influence. 1 out of 10. And then so my score is just being transparent. So starting week 1 Monday of after my 4 weeks full month, I had a 7.5 day, an 8 day, a 5 day, and that was the same day that I had 0 connections. So you can see the you know the tie there. Then I had a 9 day, I had an 8 day, I had a 7.5 day, and I had a 7, and I had a 6 day and a 7, and yesterday I had a 9. Very interesting. So I'm seeing this like real time tracking, and then my agents and my support structure, and then living framework or whatever through LLMs and AI are helping me to build that out and be aware of it. So what you do with your community. Now that I'm not really including all that, but a lot of people have friendship groups that are like, let's go on a hike. Let's do this. That also, cross sections with fitness. Let's go to a worship service. That cross sections with faith. Let's go to a business seminar. That cross sections with finance. I don't really have communities like that. I don't have like a solid group of friends that I do all those different things with. Maybe one day I have a friend or a few friends, but I don't have a really solid friend group. So, doing life means your friendships are integrated into your daily infrastructure. They're not treated as an afterthought. I don't know if I really have that. But my data does show that I interact a lot with people through my day-to-day. And so doing life with people doesn't mean that I have like this like special group of people. I try to bring like a positive, blessing wherever I go to every encounter, no matter who I'm with. And that I look to, I look at everybody the same. I try to. Just like good old Henry Higgins and Eliza Doolittle, for those of you who are fans of that book. Moving right along, and we'll kind of wrap up with this. Setting hard definitions on the difference between these things. Your family should be a critical priority more than your friends. And I know most young people don't really see it that way, but they should. Although friends sometimes become really important during hard times in your family. And then the idea of setting definitive boundaries and what they are and what they're not, like these vessels and these things. I think we all can kind of figure that out ourselves, but you should be aware that you're doing that on a day-to-day. And the last way to kind of wrap this up is, again, think about how your friendships are bringing more or less freedom to your life. Some friendships actually become crushing and smothering, and those are bad. Those are not really friendships. But you should be measuring your friendships based on how much freedom, according to your definition, or if you're a faith-based person, your traditions-based definition of freedom. And when you're looking at how you're being free from cultural bondage, how you're being free from, hard times and hard things that are not growing you and developing you, if your alliances are strong, you can delegate, collaborate, and automate because you can trust these people. And relational capital helps you actually, multiply your time. But when you're trapped in the weeds of like daily firefighting on every one of these pillar levels, then that becomes really difficult. And sometimes friendship takes an awful lot of your time and energy. And you're putting out fires in that space. That's not worth it, and you should be aware of that and careful that you don't let that do that. That you don't let that friendship pillar become like an obstacle to your freedom or to your growth in the other pillars. So that's going to be a wrap. You can ask yourself, these questions throughout your day. If you need a tracker, you can definitely request one at michael@megaverseca.com. And we just want you to be feeling richer, satisfied, and more more free because you took time to listen to this. Thanks again, and just keep up the good work wherever you're at. Keep fighting the good fight, as they say. And that's a quick advertisement for next week's podcast, which is going to be on fight. So, peace be upon you. Have an awesome one. Bye.